All right, back to alternate picking. So we've already talked about alternate picking, different subdivisions. And the second video, we talked about scale fragments using only one string, diatonic scales. And in this video, we will talk about diatonic scales still, but scale fragments using two strings. So scale fragments like this, or and this one. So still the same thing. You can get creative with this. You can mix up the different notes to get different patterns. So apply the permutation concept. Get creative with it. Make sure that it repeats itself over and over again so that you can practice the scale fragment in one spot and you can move it around when you're ready in different strings or in different position. So that's how you create long lines that are alternate pick. Now I'd like to address the question, what if it's a 3-string scale fragment? Because we're only gonna stop at 2-string scale fragments. So there are 3-string scale fragments and 4-string scale fragments and 5 and 6. So let's take a look at 3-string scale fragments or 3-string scale fragments and above. So 2-string scale fragments, very easy concept to understand. Any scale fragment that involves 2 strings. But 3-string scale fragments like this, just an example, so that involves 3 strings. So before we dissect that, the only reason why we are focusing on 2-string scale fragments is to focus on the shifting from one string to another while constantly doing a down up stroke. Because in the first video, or in the previous video, we were only focusing on 1-string scale fragments, and it was easy because we didn't need to shift from one string to another. We were just in one string and we were just moving it around as a scale fragment. So like when we shift to a different string, so 1-string scale fragment to 1-string scale fragment, we are thinking about it as a whole. We weren't constantly shifting from one string to another. But with 2-string scale fragments, we can focus more on shifting to different strings while alternate picking. So something like so that's the main focus of practicing 2-string scale fragments. So you get to play, or you get to shift to different strings more often. So with 3-string scale fragments, what we just need to do is just divide them into groups of 2 strings. So for example, this 3-string scale fragment, we can divide that into that section. Repeat that over and over again, but we've already played that several times already. So let's focus on the next 2-string scale fragment, or the second half of that scale fragment, which is starting with an upstroke this time, which is kind of unusual to play. So starting with an upstroke, and that's actually where we get a lot of our problems when we're alternate picking, starting with an upstroke. Because what happens is when you start with an upstroke, and this is where it gets difficult because we are now experiencing the inside of the string problem. So we're doing an up, down, up, ending an upstroke on the B string and starting a downstroke on the E string. So this is a problem because it's gonna require us to be mindful of how we are going to pick, because when we do an upstroke on a higher string geographically, for us to be able to downstroke on a lower string, like the high E string, after that, we need to be careful not to hit the B string again. So, because if you're not careful, what's going to happen is you're going to hit it, especially if you're playing fast. So you just need to be mindful of that. So play it slow at first. So just isolate that section of the 3-string scale fragment, divide it into 2-string, groups of 2-string, and repeat it over and over again, and find out where the problem is, find out what the difficult part of that scale fragment is, if there is an inside of the string thing going on. So just practice it over and over again until you get used to it. Start slow, bring your metronome down to around 60 BPM and work your way up. So once you master that, then you can connect. So it's a 3-string scale fragment now. So that's how you practice 3-string scale fragments, by just focusing or dividing them into groups of 2-string scale fragments. So basically that's it. So just and you can practice the descending portion of that scale fragment. So if you want to divide it even further, so the next part is the descending part, which is ending with the downstrokes. If you want to start in this part of the scale fragment, you can start with the downstroke there and descend 2 strings at a time if you're still practicing, if you're not used to it yet. So now once again, this part of the scale fragment, although we're starting with a downstroke, we're still experiencing the inside of the string phenomenon, because we are descending now. So down, up, down on the E string, ending on a downstroke on the E string, but having to do an upstroke on the B string. So once again, be careful with that event that happens in there. So down on the E string, up on the B string. So because if you're not careful, again, you can hit the E string when you're shifting to the different string, to another string. So just be mindful of that, and once again, start slow and work your way up. So now you can connect them. Now we're almost done. This is the last portion of the scale fragment. So I think we started with an upstroke here. So up, down, up. So this is an easy one because there's no inside of the string phenomenon that will happen. So up, down, down on the G string. So it's much easier if there's no inside of the string happening. So that's how you do it. You just divide the scale fragment. If it's multiple strings or more than 2 strings, just divide them into groups of small 2-string scale fragments. Isolate them, practice them individually, then slowly connect them. Start slow, be mindful of the inside of the string phenomenon, but when you play it fast, just be mindful of that event that happens when you're picking the scale fragment. And if you're mindful, if you're aware that, okay, this is the inside of the string part, you make the necessary adjustments with your right hand, then you'll be able to do it. So alright, so that's how you practice scale fragments, alternate picking, 2 strings, and 2 strings and above, basically. So you just divide them into small groups of 2 strings. So yeah, that's it.